Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about what's happening in the Russian economy, and specifically to talk about what's going on with guns and butter. Hang on a minute, do I mean guns and butter, or do I mean guns and roses? No, that is the Joe Blogs heavy metal channel, not this one. This is talking about guns and butter. And in all seriousness, guns and butter is actually an established economic model that was first introduced in World War I. And what it looks at is opportunity cost. So a government of any country has a finite amount of money, and so it has to make decisions as to where it's going to invest that money. And if a government is investing more into guns and less into things like consumer products and social investment, then that means that you can get a situation where the economy starts to get out of control. And that's what's going on in Russia right now. Now, interestingly, President Putin recently came out and made a statement about this. He said that he thought that the balance was just right in the Russian economy right now in terms of guns and butter. However, this table of prices that was recently published by Rosstat, the official statistics agency in Russia, shows that the price of butter, which is considered to be a staple that everybody in Russia will need to buy, has risen by more than 25.7% over the past 9 months. And as a result of that sharp increase in the price of butter, supermarkets in Russia are now encasing butter in plastic boxes. They're actually providing security packaging to stop people from stealing it. And it's been reported that in the supermarkets that are not protecting their butter, there has been a significant rise in butter theft. And you may have seen a video that's been circulating on social media showing somebody stealing a large quantity of butter from a supermarket. And I've actually got that footage, which I'll show you at the end of today's video, because I've managed to acquire some special audio. The footage that was posted on X didn't have any audio on it, but I've now found that audio, and I think you'll find that really interesting, and it may well put a smile on your face. But you have to wait until the end of the video to have a look at that. Now, this graph actually plots the guns and butter curve. On the left-hand axis here, we've got the production of butter, which goes from 0 at the bottom to £1,000 at the top. And here we're talking about pounds in weight rather than pounds in money. And across the bottom axis, we have the production of guns from 0 on the left-hand side to 200 on the right-hand side. And you can see that there have been 2 points plotted on this curve. If we look at the one at the top first, that assumes that with the finite amount of money available to a government, it could produce 20 guns and £900 of butter. And the other point that's plotted on this chart shows that the alternative is that the government could produce 180 guns and only £100 of butter. So clearly, if a country decided that it wanted to follow that path, it would be focusing mostly on military expenditure and disregarding the production of butter. However, at the other end of the scale, it's focusing mostly on the production of butter and only producing a very small number of guns. And the reason why this economic model is so appropriate for Russia right now is because back in the 1980s, the guns and butter curve was applied predominantly to the Soviet Union. There were a lot of commentators that said that the Soviet Union was focusing predominantly on military expenditure and was foregoing all of the social investment. And there were lots of videos that circulated at that time, not on social media because it didn't exist in the 1980s. You had to watch things on television. And those videos showed stores in Russia with people queuing around the block. You had hundreds of people waiting for a store to open, and then when the store did open, it only had a small number of things to sell. So people would queue for hours trying to buy bread and butter and those sort of things. And the accusation at the moment is that Russia is going down that road again. It's focusing more on defence spending than it is on social investment. And despite the fact that President Putin said recently that he thinks he's got the balance right between the expenditure on guns and butter, there is a big question as to whether or not that's correct. And this chart shows the breakdown of the budgeted expenditure by Russia for 2023, 24, 25 and 26. And we've got 6 different categories listed here. National defence covers all of the expenditure that Russia's investing into the war in Ukraine. Social policy is basically the butter in this equation. That's all of the investment into things to keep all of the economy moving along. Domestic security covers all of the home security issues, so not the overseas investment into military. This is defending the Russian state at home. The economy is investment to keep the economy itself moving, and then we've got education and healthcare. And the four different coloured lines here, the black line shows the actual expenditure in 23, the pink line, the forecast expenditure for 2024, the blue line is the budgeted expenditure for 25, and the yellow line is the budget for 26. Now, I'm actually currently working on a long-form video to talk about this budget in more detail, but we've run through the salient points just now. If we start off by looking at 2023, interestingly, the biggest single investment was into social policy, so basically the butter at 6.5 trillion rubles, closely followed by national defence at 6.4. So I think at that point in time, you could say that the investment was relatively well balanced. However, if we now look at 2024, you can see that there was a huge increase in national defence spending, almost 69% to 10.8 trillion rubles. However, investment in social policy only increased by 15% to 7.5. So at that point, we started to see a shift in terms of a focus on military spending and less focus on the butter. And if we now look at the budgeted levels for 2025, which is shown by the blue line, you can see that there's a further increase of 22% to 13.2 trillion. However, investment into social policy is actually forecast to reduce by more than 9% to 6.8 trillion, which means that in 2025, the spend on guns is almost double what it will be on butter. And just before we leave this chart, I think one thing that's really interesting to note is what's happening with education and healthcare spending, because they are by far the smallest categories out of all of these 6 categories. And you can see that there hasn't really been any significant increase over the past 3 years, despite the fact that defence spending has more than doubled. So I think there is definitely a strong argument to say that Russia is getting out of kilter at the moment. There is definitely more focus on guns and less focus on butter. And that's obviously going to be hugely detrimental to the people in Russia because they need to buy all of the basics just to survive. It's all good and well growing your GDP by paying companies in Russia to produce things for the war in Ukraine. That looks good on the international statistics. However, if the people in Russia simply can't afford to buy things like butter, then clearly you've got a big problem. And if we quickly jump back to the Rosstat official statistics and have a look at what's going on with potatoes, you can see that there's been a 54% increase in the price of potatoes over the last 9 months. And obviously potatoes are also extremely important for Russian consumers. So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video because I think what's going on with expenditure on guns and butter is really quite interesting. And it is a classical model that you look at when countries are at war. Is the balance right? Is the government getting it right in terms of making sure it's looking after its own people, as well as trying to win whatever war that it's at the moment? And what we've seen from today's data is that it doesn't look like the balance is right in Russia right now. There has been a huge focus on the war in Ukraine, and that focus has started to drive up prices. We've talked about this in many other videos. But basically, as you start to invest more into those companies, they want to hire more people, and so they offer higher wages. That drives up wages across the board because as people leave one company to go and join the companies that are being sponsored by the Kremlin, they leave behind a vacancy, and that company then has to offer a higher rate to try and attract in some more staff. And so we've had a wage spiral. That wage spiral has been driving up prices because people have been having more money, so therefore demand has gone up. And as we've seen prices going up, we've seen inflation rising. Over the last 12 months, there's been a significant increase in inflation. And it's currently officially sitting at around 8.6%, which is more than double the target rate of 4% set by the Russian central bank. However, one of the major problems with the increase in prices is that the only way that the Russian central bank can deal with inflation is by increasing interest rates. And interest rates are now up at 21% in Russia. It's the highest level since 2003. And as we've seen in today's video, the price of things like butter and potatoes, which are important to every consumer in Russia, have gone up significantly over the course of the last 9 months. And we're now seeing lots of instances of people going to supermarkets and stealing things like butter. It's becoming a hot property that you can sell on the black market. And in the end of today's video, I'll show you that video with the extra special audio. So check that out because I think you'll be interested. It's quite enlightening. It's definitely well worth a watch. But the overall summary of today's video is that the focus on the war in Ukraine is causing major problems in the Russian economy. We've seen a large increase in prices, and some of the basic fundamentals that Russian consumers need to buy on a daily basis are rising in price at considerably higher rates than the overall level of inflation, and that's going to cause major problems if this situation carries on for much longer. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video, you found it useful, informative and thought-provoking. If you have, then please give me a thumbs up. And here's something that I think you'll find very interesting and may also put a smile on your face.
Okay, I've got the butter. I'm going to put it in my pocket. I don't seem to be able to find my pocket. It's here somewhere. I think I'll go back and get another butter. Put another butter in my pocket. Yes, I've got one. Nobody can see me doing any of this. I'm looking around. There are no people watching me. It is fantastic. I can just take as much butter as I want. I'm going to get one from the back. Put that in my pocket as well. I think I'll have another butter. Need more butter. Yes, let's put another butter in my pocket. Nobody can see me. This is the perfect crime. I'd get another butter, put that in my pocket as well. My pocket's getting quite full of butter. I need to think of somewhere else to put the... my bag. I'll put the butter in my bag. Nobody can see me. This is the perfect crime. Fantastic. Nobody can see me at all. Fill the bag with butter. Yes, I'm going to have lots of really expensive butter that I can then sell somewhere. Or maybe I'll use all this butter. I think I'll have another butter. Oh, no. I'm going to buy some eggs. Yes, I'll have some eggs as a cover story. Is there any more butter here? Any more butter? No, there's more eggs. I'll buy some more eggs. Hey, what are you doing? I'm just here shopping. Leave me alone. I haven't done anything. I don't have lots of butter in my pockets. I'm going to leave. I'm running for the exit now. This woman's chasing me. Here we go. Oh, hey, hoi, what's going on here? I haven't done anything. Leave me alone. I haven't got any butter. Hey, I've got all the butter. Leave her alone. Leave me alone. I haven't got any butter. What are you talking about? I want to leave. Look, I'm putting my arms in the air. I don't have any butter. No butter whatsoever. No butter. My hair. Oh, I need to do my hair. No butter. He's got all the butter. He's got it in his bag. He's got the butter in his bag.